All right, good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to the virtual annual meeting of the Newton County REMC Board. I am President of the Board of Directors, Brian Johnson, and I will call the meeting to order. First, I will ask Mark Jeffert, Secretary, to come ahead and read the notice of meeting, proof of notice, and minutes of our last annual meeting on December 7th, 2023.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning. The first certificate of mailing certifies that the annual meeting ballots for Newton County REMC, totaling 1,024 pieces, were deposited in the U.S. mail on November 4th, 2024 at the O'Fallon, Missouri Post Office. The second certificate of mailing certifies that the annual meeting minutes from 2023 and the balance sheet for the Newton County REMC, totaling 1,023 pieces, were deposited in the U.S. mail on November 20th, 2024 at the O'Fallon, Missouri Post Office. Both of these certificates came from the National Information Solutions Corporation and were signed by Kim Hope. In lieu of reading the minutes from the annual meeting from December 7th, 2023, which were included in the mailing on November 27th, can we get a motion to move that they will be accepted as mailed? Okay. Mike, is there a second?
Second.
Kevin? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brent Welsh, I'm General Manager. I'll give our report of operations and financial report. Good morning. This is the 85th annual meeting of Newton County REMC. We were formed as an electric cooperative in 1939. As a cooperative, we're guided by the 7 cooperative principles: voluntary and open membership, democratic member control, members' economic participation, autonomy and independence, education, training and information, cooperation among cooperatives, and concern for community. Our meeting today hits on several of these principles. Our democratic member control occurs at this annual meeting. Our directors are voted on by all our members to represent different areas of our territory. Because we're owned by our members and they participate financially with us, I'll be going over our audited financial report to let you know we're sound and managing ourselves responsibly. And the other main principle touched on today is to give you information so you know what's going on with our cooperative and can make informed decisions. With that in mind, I'll start with our report on operations. First, I'd like to introduce our line crew. Spud Sheets is our line superintendent. Our line foreman is Troy Burton. Matt Beasley is a journeyman lineman. Hayden Maddox is a third-year apprentice. Luke Standish just hired in April, and he started his apprenticeship in September. And I didn't see Ryan. He's a third-year apprentice too. They do a great job, and we'd like to thank you guys for your efforts. Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a story about them. One of the job requirements of being a lineman is taking your turn on call. Because we're small, they have to take it more than most other cooperatives. So I checked around, and most of them use a service to take calls and dispatch during non-business hours. I asked them if they wanted me to look into it, and they all said no. They had heard of problems with other co-ops doing it. They didn't trust strangers, especially ones who didn't know our lines or our members, to do a good enough job looking out for you guys. So when you call us when the power's out, you talk to a real local person. They really do care about taking care of you. They've been busy this year. 2,600 poles were inspected. They did the poles over by our old York metering point and a few up by our Colfax sub. They found and replaced 17 rotten poles. 30 breakers were changed as part of our normal maintenance rotation. They built almost 5 miles of line, 3-phase lines, to 2 different grain setups and put in an underground 3-phase to a new 1,000 amp commercial service. They continued our tree trimming program to enhance our reliability. And as always, they continue to take safety seriously. We started a safety committee this year and are reviewing all of our policies and practices to make sure we're doing everything we can to ensure everyone goes home safe every evening. Okay. We'll look at our financials now. A copy of our audited financial statements were mailed to every member in November, so I'll hit some of the highlights. On our balance sheet, our total assets grew $235,000 this year to $12.425 million. Almost all of that was from patronage capital from our power supplier, Wabash Valley. Long-term debt went up $140,000. We paid off $210,000 on our short-term line of credit. Overall, our total equity went up around $300,000 and 66% of our total assets. Moving on to the income statement, revenues were up about $148,000 compared to last year, totaling $7.3 million. Our power costs alone were up $318,000, which was most of the increase of $377,000 in operating expenses. The final net number came in at $336,000 in margins for the year. It's down about $100,000 from last year, but it's still respectable. The weather was a struggle most of the year. We had a large number of months with very mild weather for most of the month, and then a couple days of very hot or cold weather. What this does to our power bills, it increases demand charges, which are based on peak usage, but it doesn't have the energy sales to match. It makes our cost of power more expensive per kilowatt hour. Our gross margin percentage was 27.69, which is a little lower than normal. It usually runs around 30%. Over 65% of our income is from large commercial customers, so we're very dependent on our dairies and the landfill and our factories. Looking back 10 years, we've come a long way. Our revenues back then were $5.2 million versus $7.3 million now. Our power costs were $3.6 million versus $5.3 million this year. Kilowatt hours sold has increased from 45 million to over 60 million. Our net utility plant has grown from $5.1 million to $9.2 million. Are there any online questions about the financial report? Okay, for Newton County's REMC's near-term plans, we're currently taking bids on a new cold storage building on our current property. We need to get our equipment and transformers out of the weather, mainly for security. We have a new bucket truck coming, scheduled for late next year. Of course, it was scheduled for 2 years ago, but we have hope. We have 2 large members planning on expansions in the near future and have gotten inquiries from multiple others about building new facilities. We're growing at a nice pace and it's manageable. We'll be starting construction on our 3rd and final substation next year. It'll replace the Morocco metering point that's fed from NIPSCO's lines and also take most of the load off the Colfax substation to allow growth up in that area, up by Fair Oaks. When it gets done in 3 years or so, we won't be reliant on NIPSCO substations, and we will have redundancy if any of our current ones have an outage. They'll be tied together to back each other up. We have a cost of service study scheduled for the end of the year. With the changes in the world in the last few years and all the inflation, we're going to make sure that we're still being fair to all our members and that our rates make sense. And finally, we have to see what happens with the big changes in politics that have been going on in relation to our industry. We're still trying to navigate it, but there's a lot of unknowns yet to be decided. I'd like to thank our board for their support. They understand our industry and our cooperative. They'll invest for the long term, but keep an eye on our bottom line. They're an important asset to our company, and I'm lucky to be able to work with them. Saving the best for last, I'd like to introduce our inside personnel. They're busy working, monitoring comments and stuff. If you need a question, you can type it in. Brenda Donahue's our office manager. She's in charge of accounting, payroll, HR, and taxes, and she's done a great job this year. Next, our cashier is Amy Babcock. She's in charge of all the billing and make sure everything's accurate and on time. She's done really well. And last but not least, Candace Krug is our clerk. She helps with billing, keeps track of material, updates our web page, and is absolutely the only employee we have with any artistic skill. She's an asset and greatly appreciated. Okay, if any of you have any questions on our financials or any other concerns, please feel free to call me here at the office, or you can message me through our website. Thank you, and now our President's report from Brian Johnson.
All right, thank you, Brent. As I said earlier, I'm Brian Johnson. I'm the president of the board of directors. I'm from Iroquois Township, or I'm the director from Iroquois Township. I came on the board in 2021, and this is my first year serving as president of the board. I will go around the room and introduce the other board members. First off, we have Brent Creek. He's our Benton County director of the township's Union Center, Pine, and Gilboa. He's also our IAC director. Next up we have Vice President Mike Cooley. He came on the board in 2003. He's a Jasper County director for the townships of Carpenter, Newton, and Jordan. Next we have our secretary, Mark Jeffert. He's Benton County townships of York and Parish Grove, and Newton County, Jefferson Township, south of 24. And next up we have our former president, who just stepped down this year, Rick Risley. He's also our Wabash Valley director. And he came on the board in 1992. Is that it?
Yes. And
he was board president for 11 years, so I have several years to go to fill his shoes. But and yeah, he is the director for Washington Township, Beaver Township, and Jefferson Township, north of 24. Next we have Kevin Durham. He is director for Newton County Townships, Grant, and Benton County of Richland Township. And last we have Ron Summers. He is the director for Newton County Townships of McClellan, Jackson, Colfax, and I believe that's it. Yep. And we also have G. Michael Deweese in attendance. He is our attorney from Par Ritchie, Franson, and Patterson. And we'd like to thank the London Witt Group, their auditors, or Whitty Group, who reported our audit last year, which came back clean with no issues. As the newly elected president of the board of directors, I'm proud to report that while times are changing, our cooperative rates continue to hold steady. In the coming year, we continue to, the Newton County REMC's typical residential membership average bill is in the lowest 1/3 of statewide average rates, and it continues to be substantially lower than any investor-owned utilities in our area. Our personnel have worked hard this year to lower the average outages per consumer by 30% from our 5-year average, showing that we will continue to provide reliable electricity at reasonable rates. In the coming year, we will continue to retire capital credits for the members on our system for the years of 1973 and 1974, which will total $47,860.63. That will put the RMC's total retired credits at over 825,000 since we began retiring credits in 2016. The checks for the years 1973 and 1974 will begin to be issued in January 2025. Our annual audit was completed by our auditors last month, London Witt and CPAs. It was another clean audit. It was reported and approved to the board of directors at our November business meeting. In closing, I am grateful for the opportunity to serve as president of the REMC board. While uncertain times may be ahead with federal and state regulations ever changing, I am still grateful for the opportunity to serve for the board of directors and continue on the traditions of our past and carrying them on into the future. And I thank you. What's that? Yes, now I will call G. Michael to give the results of our election.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning. The Committee on Nominations, appointed by the Board of Directors, held its meeting in the offices of Newton County REMC at 4151 East US 24 in Goodland, Indiana on September 23, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. with the following committee members in attendance: Pamela Moulter, James Chamberlain, Matthew Carlson, Stephen Eilers, David Pettit, Philip Atkinson, and Pam Edmonds. The committee nominated the following individuals to serve for a 2-year term for their respective district. For Grant Richland, Kevin Durham. For Washington, Beaver, and Jefferson, north of US 24, Rick Risley. And for Union Center, Gilboa, and Pine, Brent Creek. There were no nomination petitions filed prior to the meeting. A majority vote was cast in favor of the 3 nominees selected by the committee. Therefore, Mr. Durham, Mr. Risley, and Mr. Creek are each duly elected to serve as a director for a term of 2 years or until their successors have been elected and qualified. Thank you to the committee for their work, and congratulations to Kevin, Rick, and Brent. Thank you.
Now we will continue on to our drawings for the award of prizes. This is the drawing for the free electricity or $1,500 free electricity.
You feel like that's good? There you go.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the winner is David Lovall.
Okay. Congratulations, David.
Yes, congratulations.
Sorry, Kevin.
I've had heavier things.
And the next winner for, what's this? This is
Another $1,500.
Another $1,500. W.D. Gazaway.
Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you for everyone that sent in their ballots, participated in the drawing. And do we have anything else to add to the meeting?
Thanks, and see you next year.
Yes, well, yes, thank you all for attending our meeting, and we will see you again next year. Merry Christmas.